Now we get to part two. Part two, and gonna go back to DC for a bit before I continue with Marvel. Then of course, Alan Moore create in the 80s Alan Moore created Watchmen, and this comic helped DC this in their competition. This helped DC in their rivalry with Marvel, whose Marvel was kicking their butts with stories like the X-Men. This is when DC started getting dark again with stories like this, Dark Knight Returns, and of course, the new Teen Titans, the 80s Teen Titans. And Teen Titans, that's another series. I didn't bring any of their comics books down with me right now, but there was the 70s Teen Titans series. Then there was the cool 70s Teen Titans with Robin, Kid Flash, Wonder Girl, and Aqualad as a team. Then of course the 80s version, the more familiar Teen Titans with Robin, Beast Boy, Raven, Starfire, Cyborg. This was the 80s comics, which were created to compete with the popular X-Men comics by George Perez, and I keep forgetting the other guy's name, but these two are about two of my favorite comic book artists right here. And then of course you had around the same time, see, this is when DC and Marvel started getting dark. Around the 70s and 80s, when they started getting dark again, you had other stuff like what's that comic book called? Yes, DC Marvel had the Tomb of Dracula, which introduced us to a lot of characters like Blade, Hannibal King, Dracula, and so many other characters, Man-Thing, so many other characters. This was DC's like horror. This was Marvel's horror comic book series, more horror and supernatural. They also had their own comic book version of Frankenstein and the Wolfman. Then of course DC also around this time, DC even before this, had more darker heroes like the Spectre, who is like a spiritual godlike being who is just like Batman, except he strikes criminals, he kills criminals and strikes them down without hesitation. Then of course you got Deadman, a guy just like Robin, Boston Brands, who gets killed in a circus and is resurrected as a spiritual entity that can possess people. Then you got the Swamp Thing, the swamp creature. Then you got their version of Frankenstein, the Phantom Stranger, Etrigan the Demon, John Constantine. So like I said, so many awesome characters. And then of course so many awesome characters. Then going back to Marvel, you also have Knight Rider and the Ghost Rider, two cool characters. The Punisher, another cool character. Daredevil. Punisher is in my opinion, one of the most underrated characters of all time. He's just like Batman, except in my opinion a little bit more real, but he doesn't get the same type of recognition that Batman gets. Daredevil is awesome too and underrated. So is Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider is awesome. A flaming motorcycle rider. I was introduced to him through Scorpion from Mortal Kombat and Spawn from Image. So like I said, man, so many awesome Marvel and DC, so many awesome stuff. Then with films, you have the original Marvel universe with X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Daredevil, Spider-Man. These were the best films, but they were some of my all-time favorites, and it was good seeing these things come to life. Then you had the stuff from the early 90s. The Captain America back then was kind of terrible, but I enjoyed it. The unreleased Fantastic Four, I thought that was awesome. That looks just like the 90s cartoon. And then of course I love the 1989 Punisher flick with Dolph Lundgren. The 2000s Punishers are awesome too. The first one with Thomas Jane. Then the reboot with Ray Stevenson was awesome too. Sucks none of those three Punisher movies ever had sequels. Then of course Blade. Oh yes, Blade. This is actually when comic book and superhero movies started becoming popular after they took a downturn in the late 90s. So yeah, then of course Iron Man. The Marvel Cinematic Universe. The Marvel Cinematic Universe started it all for the Iron Man. Then the Incredible Hulk. Then Iron Man 2, which was good, but is overshadowed by all the stuff I'm going to talk about now. Then Thor, man. Then of course Captain America. Then finally the Avengers. All of that led up to the Avengers. The Avengers film, what is considered the best comic book movie of all time. Then of course Iron Man 3, which I didn't like, but that was pretty good. Then of course Captain America, the Winter Soldier. My God, this was awesome too. This was way better than I expected. Then Guardians of the Galaxy. And that closes Phase 1, and we're about to begin Phase 2 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Then, of course, DC. Well, they didn't really have a cinematic universe, but they had a lot of awesome movies, like the Joel Schumacher Batman movies, Don't Care What No One Says, Tim Burton Batman movies, even though Returns really isn't that. Returns, I kind of have a lot of problems with. That hasn't aged well. The Swamp Thing 1 and 2, Constantine. I thought that was awesome with Keanu Reeves. V for Vendetta. I've never cared for the character V for Vendetta, but I did like his movie. And I do like Alan Moore, his writer. Watchmen. Oh, this right here was good. This totally, in my opinion, this was like a brand new comic book. A comic book movie I had never seen before. Then of course, finally, the Green Lantern. Then we get Man of Steel. Which is the first in DC's shared cinematic universe. So like I said, awesome stuff. Then we got the Justice League Dark film coming in the future. So yeah. Then of course video games. Of course, you have the Marvel vs. Capcom series, Marvel Superheroes 1995, which started the Marvel vs. Capcom series. X-Men, the arcade game, X-Men, the Sega Genesis game, X-Men, Mutant Academy, and Next Dimension fighting games featuring X-Men characters, X-Men, Children of the Atom, another fighting game, which this and Marvel Superheroes were the precursor to the Capcom vs. Marvel series, X-Men Legends, the action RPG game for the 6th generation consoles, PS2 and Xbox, and GameCube. Marvel Alliance, another action RPG video game. X-Men, the official game. So yeah, lots of awesome Marvel games in the 4th, 5th, and 6th generations. The 7th generation's Marvel's games are terrible, in my opinion. Are for the most part terrible. Then of course DC in the 6th generations, they have some of the best games ever. Let's start with the 4th generation. They have Batman Returns, and Batman Forever and Robin for the Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, and PlayStations respectively, which were awesome. I've never really played any of the 6th generation's Batman, so I'm going to skip those and go to the 7th generation. You got the badass Arkham Asylum, Green Lantern, Rise of the Manhunters, Injustice with a sequel coming out, a fighting game. Then of course, one of the greatest fighting games of all time, Mortal Kombat vs. DC characters crossing over with Mortal Kombat characters. Like I said, awesome stuff, man. Such an awesome such an awesome series of such an awesome franchise from both DC and Marvels. This was part 1 and 2 of my salute of Marvel and DC. I'm going to be saluting the awesome writers of DC and Marvel. Alright, Doug8798 out.